Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to This is a Revolution, your weekly RevPro podcast here on the Cromulent Wrestling YouTube channel. My name, as always, is George, and I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Dave the Mark. David?
Hello, mate.
Why did I call you David? I'd never call you David. I went David. And I was like, oh,
David.
This is a bit with David. Yeah.
That means that you've taken on the role of my mother-in-law.
Excellent. Love
One
that.
of the very few people in the world that calls me David.
That's fine. I'm a mother-in-law now.
There's like a little bit of me that's like, don't like that. But then my wife always says to me, she said, when we first met, you introduced yourself as David, so that's what I've called you for the last 19 years, and that's what her mum calls me. So
Fair enough.
I'll take being called David by the missus over some of the other things she calls me. So.
Well, there is that. I think I said to someone at work the other day. They called me something. They went, "Oh," and I said, "Look, I've been called a lot worse. We'll take it where we can get it." How's your week been, mate?
Yeah, all right. I watched loads of wrestling this week. Loads of it. I'm really enjoying it as well. Just itching to get back to RevPro.
Yeah, you'll see Dave walking into the 229 at the weekend. Just
Yeah. Why not? I've not only have I watched the last two Raws and the last two SmackDowns and really enjoyed almost all of it. I woke up Sunday morning and purposely didn't go on social media at all until I'd watched Saturday night's main event. Which I can't remember the last time that an American TV show made me want to avoid spoilers. But even though, I think most of the results on that card were pretty obvious what they were going to be, I still quite liked the idea of watching Jey Uso versus Gunther and being able to believe and hope that Jey Uso would win, and the same with Sheamus versus Bron Breakker. So, I enjoyed it, mate. It's nice to be able to watch wrestling and not take it too seriously, which I've always been guilty of in the past.
Hoping Jey Uso beats Gunther to become a world champion. Fucking hell, mate. I was joking about this. I think I said to you on text. I can't remember I actually sent this or I was just thinking it. But I was jokingly going to say you're going to do a new article on davethemark.com for 10 pictures for Jey Uso at York Hall. And I can absolutely imagine it now. You're just going to come up with all these ideas of who could Jey Uso fight at that? Oh, fucking hell. No, to be fair, I love that something's grabbed you like this, because I've always said, right, WWE I found it hard for it to grab me, right? Through various reasons, mainly around the booking. And I kind of started realizing 2017 it wasn't for me as much anymore, and that's fine, right? Wrestling changes. But I still like the idea when a WWE show comes to town that I go, I'm going to make the effing go to that. Because it could just be fun. And the Netflix thing has been really good because you can just dip in and look at it. I keep forgetting it's on there at the minute. That's my problem. I'm still not used to it being on there as much. And when I do see it's on there, it's SmackDown. I'm like, oh, that's 3 hours long. So you know what? I might sit down tonight and watch last week's Raw after we're finished, because I've got some bits of editing to do. So
enjoyed it. And something that I really like is, one, how accessible it is. Mm-hmm. Two, just how crisp everything is. The production side of it is so much better than when I last watched it.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't think I've watched WWE since 2020. I don't think, but everything you can just see there's been a lot of work's gone into the way it's shot, the way the arenas are laid out, the way that they use lights instead of AEW's got pyro, and WWE uses the light shows. And it's it's new to me and it's really fresh and I really like it. Yeah. And it's so easy to watch and digestible. That's what I like. Yeah. And I forget that there are some great people in WWE. There are some people that I love watching that I haven't seen for a long time. And they feel authentically themselves again. It doesn't feel like everyone's reading from a Vince McMahon script.
Yeah.
I had to turn off WWE years ago because Michael Cole did my nutting. And since I've been watching it, I'm like, wow, Michael Cole's so good at commentary.
Yeah.
Like, he's genuinely so good at commentary. What I hated about Michael Cole before was the fact that it was Vince's lines spewing out of his mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I've also watched the last couple of Dynamites and Collisions. They're the first ones I've watched since All In, and I Dynamite this week. I enjoyed, and I enjoyed some parts of Collision like a lot as well. But again, I needed a break from AEW to stop taking it so seriously.
Yeah.
Like, my wife would actually say to me, she'd say, like, every Thursday night you watch Dynamite, and then at the end of it, you're in a bad mood. She's like, because you don't actually enjoy it that much. But it's like, she's described it as you're just willing it to be what you want it to be. So it's more like you're going to keep watching because you believe it's going to become what you want it to become. She's like, I just don't think it's ever going to be that. And I'm like, yeah, I think you've absolutely nailed it on the head there. It's never going to be the wrestling company I want it to be. But that's cool. Like, I'm just one person. They've got loads of people that absolutely adore it. So
yeah,
I'm never going to shit on it or like slag it off or anything like that, because it's not for me. But I don't really think that American wrestling generally is for me. But I do quite like just being surrounded by wrestling and keeping up to date with stuff. And genuinely, if anything's for me at the moment, it is probably Raw. So I'll keep watching it.
Yeah, nice. I like that. I like that a lot. So Dave, before we get into first of all, actually, no, I was going to get into something. I need to tell you about the amazing thing that I found this week that has blown my mind, and it's probably the most middle-aged thing ever. So this isn't the bit about it. This is a story. We got a smart meter installed the other week at home, right? Not a fan, because I can see how much energy we're using, right?
Yeah.
And look, when we didn't have this, I'm the one leaving lights on here, there, and everywhere. And since I can see, oh boy, I'm like, nope, turn this down. Kettle goes on. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you putting the kettle on? No, not allowed. But I was like, right, well, we need to get some energy efficient light bulbs then, because I could see when I turned the light on how much that was going up. I was like, no. So I went onto Amazon and I found smart light bulbs. But not just smart light bulbs that can change any color I want.
Yeah.
So I bought these 2 smart light bulbs and I installed them in my house today. And like this afternoon while I was working, I was just finding all these different colors and go, what color's good for working in? And I love working in purple light. And it was great when people were calling me at work and they were like, you look very purple. I was like, thank you. So I've actually ordered more. So I've got them down in my living room, and so our living room's got a staircase in the middle of it, really annoying. So it separates off into the dining room and living room. And this week I've ordered more, and I'm going to put some up in the bedroom, and I'm going to put one in here as well. So yeah, next week I'm going to have all kinds of colours, and hopefully, because I'm giving the wife the controls as well, I'm hoping that while we're on next week, she doesn't just decide that she's going to start changing colours of things while we're recording. Like, I can imagine her doing that. Like, I'm just sitting here.
You suddenly look like you're sitting in the red light district or something.
Well, this is it, right? So when we get the thing, it shows you all the different colours it can do. And it says dinner parties and has a red light. I'm like that's what 2 things.
Dinner parties are these?
Well, to be fair, I've not told you we used to have a swingers house down the road, did I? About 4, right? Okay, so this is a podcast conversation. So 4, 5 houses down the road, actually probably a bit more than that, 6 or 7. There was these 2 houses that were bought by this guy, and he smashed them together and made a swingers house. Right? Here's how we found out. So we have what's called the Studio Theatre just down the road from us, right? Which is where I'm going to see All Star Wrestling. A 5-minute walk. And there's a garage down the end of our road. So our road's all permit parking, but there's this little area you can park. And sometimes when you can't get parked, you park in there. And I blocked someone in one night. It was this really nice old couple. And the police knocked the door and they were like, oh, sorry, you're blocking them in. So they went all the way to the police because they got blocked in. I was like, really sorry, moved it. Really old, nicely dressed and everything. And the next day, we get a knock at the door, and it's someone with a petition. So the wife answers the door, and she was like, she came to me and she was like, that was really weird. I went, what? She went, that was a petition about a swingers club. We're like, what? And we found out that there's a swingers club. If you've got children present, if anyone does watch this near children, this is your 3, 2, 1 to close their ears. It was called Donkey Dicks. Not even kidding, Donkey Dicks it was called. And I said to her, I was like, did you sign it? Like, because this was to try and get them to go. And she was like, yeah. But she didn't know why, because she was just there at the door. I was like, why? Because all these residents were trying to get them gone. I was like, I didn't even know they were here. We lived here, and we found out that they've been there longer than we lived here. And at that point, we were in here about 7, 8 years. So, like, they, to me, had been going completely under the radar. So I did a bit of investigation and found out that the studio theatre that I presumed this lovely old couple were at the night before was not showing anything that night. However, on the event schedule of a certain swingers house, there was an event that night. So yeah, we found out this swingers club.
Event schedule.
Oh, it had an event schedule. Yeah. What's the polite way I could say this? They think of 2 different words. The second part is bang. Wow. they would sometimes advertise bang for and a random woman. And then what happens is you would buy tickets, and this was before all these ones that are doing now on OnlyFans. You could get yourself. I'm not speaking from experience here, lad. Just looking on the website, because when we found out about this, it was like, okay, interesting. And yeah, you could buy tickets, take your turn. If you wanted to, you could sleep over. You just had to supply your own duvet. You damn right, if I'm going now, I'm going to be supplying my own duvet and sleeping bag. But the funniest part was, I can't remember the name of it, but Fiona Bruce did a documentary about it, right? And here is the bit that I'm glad about why we live where we live. Because Fiona Bruce can be seen walking past my car with the registration number on show. And I said, when my wife was watching this, I'm fucking glad I live down this road, because if I didn't, I've got some explaining to do now.
Wait, that is unhinged.
Yeah. I can't even remember how I got into that conversation now. But yeah, we used to have a swingers club nearby. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was a red light comment. Yeah, so we keep joking now about when people walk past, because our dining room bit sits right out onto the main street. So when it gets dark and people will just walk past, I'm just gonna put a red light on. So like, I can sit and do it on my app and just stick a red light on and see what happens.
Given what you've just told me, that the red light's gonna sound like an invitation.
Well, yeah, it is, but yeah, but hey, we're in 2025, cost of living crisis. If we can get a side hustle, mate.
Something's got to pay the bills.
Exactly. Right. On that note, Dave, you wrote a really wonderful article for DaveTheMark.com. For those who might not have got around to reading it yet, do you want to tell people a little bit about what it is and kind of the premise behind it, so they can go check it out?
Are you talking about rivalries, not feuds?
That's the one, my friend.
Yeah, rivalries, not feuds. So every now and then, I like to take a longer form approach to something that's happening in RevPro that's playing on my mind that I can't get out of my head. And doing the whole Dry January series of match recommendations, I kept coming back to the phrase rivalries, not feuds. So I thought I'd kind of do a bit of a deep dive into it.
Yeah.
And it's just looking at how the booking of RevPro represents the idea of the fact that everybody at the top of the card is involved in a series of rivalries with their peers, and that underpins how we come to the matches that we come to and how we get these incredible stories that we do, as opposed to the kind of more traditional American concept of 2 wrestlers feuding over something that has happened.
Yeah.
It effectively underpins probably the biggest thing that I love about RevPro.
I found it really interesting because it's not something I've ever thought of. like rivalries rather than feuds. I don't know why, because if I think of RevPro, I do think of it more in that what you describe as a traditional rivalry, but I've just never thought of it in that term before. So I found it really interesting. But David, I mentioned to you yesterday, like as soon as I was reading it, like I had a question for you that I want to ask you. And one of the things that you mentioned in there, without giving too much of the article away, because like I said, it's still really worth people going and actually reading it, because I'm not doing it justice here. But you do mention that obviously one of the great things about RevPro is the time some of these stories have had to build, some of the rivalries have had to build, I should say, and in some cases 4 years and only a few matches in between. With the way that wrestling is going now, so we're seeing True and Lacey out in Noah, we're seeing Zazaya out in Noah, we're seeing Danny Luna over in the United States, pretty much everywhere, Leon Slater out in TNA, GCW, all those sorts of places. Do you feel that is a sustainable way, or do you that they can achieve those long-term rivalry-based stories, or do you see like where maybe RevPro might have to pivot on that?
I think it's sustainable, and I think that Andy will stay true to it. But I don't think that every potential rivalry will become an actual rivalry.
With you.
So, like for example, take one that's nothing to do whatsoever with talent getting booked elsewhere. Take Leighton Buzzard and Michael Oku.
Mm-hmm.
They have had a couple of matches. They were involved with more than one occasion, either side of Leighton Buzzard going out to Japan. He was always circling Michael Oku. He was always involved somehow relating back to Michael Oku. In fact, you'd probably say Leighton Buzzard has only really in RevPro had story with Oku.
Yeah.
There's a potential for that to form into a long-term rivalry. But then his injury cut that completely off. Now, we're very much hoping and expecting that Buzzard will come back. But when he does, maybe that's something that will never get picked up again, because Oku has had a whole year of a career whilst Buzzard's been, rehabilitating. And it might never be on the cards again to bring the two together.
Yeah.
And in the time that Buzzard's been away, we've had all the stuff with Cameron Kai, and maybe that's a more interesting story to tell now. But Andy set up the potential long-term rivalry of the two. We've also had it with Oku and Zazaya, how we had the pair of matches. So we'll always await the rubber match. But not only is it just a case of, anyone could have 3 matches series with somebody. It doesn't make it a rivalry. But Oku and Zazaya have teamed together so many times in between. There's this kind of ongoing story that Oku kind of is like, a big brother to Zazaya, a bit of a mentor to Zazaya. Mm-hmm. And that can be played on completely. But it might never come all the way to fruition, because, maybe Zazaya going out to Noah becomes a permanent thing. Maybe we don't see Zazaya anywhere near as much this year as we have done previously. We've alluded loads of times to how much longer do we have Michael Oku full-time in British wrestling. We don't know. So I think it also links really nicely to something that Sarah Hatch said to us when we were in the hotel in Cardiff having a drink together. I don't know if you remember. She said that Andy lays all these breadcrumbs, one, because they make looking in detail at storylines so intriguing, and you never quite know where he's going because he teases lots of different things. That was like my take on it. But Sarah also made the really good point that with independent wrestling, where there are so many different kind of factors at play, he's also safeguarding his storylines so that if storyline A can't happen for whatever reason, he can lean into storyline B or storyline C.
Yeah.
So I still think we'll see lots of these long-term rivalry storytelling. I think that's how Andy books wrestling. I don't think that'll ever change. But there might be lots of times where he goes into something thinking, this could potentially build into a long-term story.
Yeah.
And it not, without us ever realizing that was part of his plan.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I love that. Love it. Yeah, it's really got my brain thinking about like the different possibilities. And yeah, I think what you just touched on there as well about the breadcrumbs, and like you said, what Sarah mentioned or made us think about how you've got to safeguard these things. Like the level of, like they say, don't know, 4D chess and stuff like that. Like you've got to think of all of these different moves. I would love to. My dream, and this is going to sound really nerdy, right? But my dream would be to just sit down with Andy Quildan as he's booking things, right? I mean, part of me doesn't want to because I don't want to know what's coming, right? Like there's that. But I would just love to be behind the scenes of the process and actually see the process. I think it'd be amazing to see and be a part of. But yeah, nice, lovely. Well, davethemark.com for that. And also a really lovely 10 things that could happen. Well, sorry, 10 cards that RevPro could play this weekend.
I quite enjoy those little ones because it is. I genuinely could see any of those things happening.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I really like, Dave, is we just talked about a really intellectual, really thinking man's piece, and then we're now gone to a piece where David said Leon wins. No, is that again a really fun?
Leon is definitely going to win on Sunday. But if the younger Leon wins, that could be a very interesting sign of what's to come in 2025, I think.
Yeah, nice. I'm sorry, I just saw a message pop up because friend of the podcast and appearing on the show that we're going to be previewing. I noticed that they traveled somewhere different in the UK today, and I said it's my favorite city in the UK, Manchester, and I said I said my favorite city, and he's like yeah, and then he just told me about him and a few other people that might be going for a beer a bit later, and it's just like, why am I not in Manchester? I could have joined along for that one. And when I say could have joined along, I could have just found out where they are and just watch it go, hi.
Hi.
Hi. Before we get kicking off on this preview as well, just once again say thank you to everyone for the reaction to the Dave Bradshaw interview that we did. Really, really fun piece. And that one, I think, is just under 100 views in the week, which I'm very happy with that, Dave. Very happy. I thought it was a really fun piece. I've said multiple times, I felt like I could have sat there for hours more speaking about Dave. Speaking with Dave, not speaking about Dave. I'm sure he'd have loved me just talking to him about himself. But and I was kind of thinking about it, like we kind of touched on his career a little bit. Like I could spend an hour talking about his, like even more about his career. I could spend an hour just sitting down and talk about the craft of what he does. Like he was just such an interesting fella, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to follow that up and have a round two. There's a few people I'd like a round two with this year.
Same.
And yeah, I always find it fascinating to get a perspective from someone who's seen it from many different angles, and for Dave, kind of like different eras of British wrestling, which is what I find the most fascinating, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I would like to do more on this channel. Look, I'm never going to say no to anyone that's like involved in the British scene and who wants to talk about what they do. But in particular this year, I'd really like to speak to the people who, they're the ones who don't step foot in the ring in a traditional sense. Those people who help bring what we see, who help enhance what we're seeing and bring that, who aren't the wrestlers. Like, I feel that they've got a really interesting take on things as well that doesn't get heard as often as maybe it should do. Nice. So, Dave, 229 this Sunday.
Yes, can't wait. Cannot wait.
So,
Shall we begin with Leon versus Leon?
Leon versus Leon. So, interesting. I'm just going to clear this up, right? Because I want to get rid of some slander that I had via text yesterday. Me and Dave were talking about the show, and we were like, right, so how do we want to do the show today? And we obviously mentioned our scoreboard system that we're going to have in place for events. And Dave was like, shall we scoreboard this? But hey, we're in a really great position now where we've got the whole card and we've got like half a Southampton card. And we're like, this is really, really great. But realistically, is Andy Quilden probably going to be in a position to give us the whole card that we need? So the week of the show, we can sit here on a Monday as we record. Like, we used to record on a Tuesday, sometimes a Wednesday, and didn't even have the whole card. So we're sitting recording on a Monday. Is it likely for every card going forward we're going to have that? Probably not. It's not really sustainable, is it? Because you're always going to get something that pops up, probably outside of Andy's control. That means he's not going to be able to do it. So I said to Dave, maybe we should only do it for the big events. Twitch Dave said, are you scared? I'm just
bear in mind I lost the uprising predictions.
I'm going to point to that one victory that I've got over who everyone would refer to as Mr. RevPro. And I hold that victory. He's lucky that I didn't end the scoreboard system there and then and just be like, right, we're done with this. We're done with this. It was a great gimmick. But no, what we're going to do is this is like the friendlies, right? The friendlies leading up to the World Cup, if you will. And purely it's because my brain will not allow me to do one random London show and not every other random show throughout the year. But
we are para-completionists.
We are, which is again why when I say I can't just dip into some WWE, I need to watch the whole show. I hate my brain sometimes. But yeah, Leon versus Leon. So you know what I find most fascinating about this match, Dave, right? And this card in general. That is a match which you would go, that's match of the night, right? On any other card. There is at least 3 matches, just looking at it, like from the very quick looking at it, where I go, okay, on any show, these 3 matches have the potential to be match of the night and a match of the year contender as well. The fact that like there's at least 3 of them here is mind-boggling to me. But Leon versus Leon, what was your thoughts when you saw that graphic pop up?
Thank God RevPro's back. It was my first thought. This is exactly like what we live for, right? On every RevPro card, you're going to get a combination of matches where a storyline has brought you there. You're going to get matches where you're looking at it thinking, ooh, I can see how that is potentially going to have storyline coming out of it. And then you're also going to get matches just between 2 people competing for wins, which you know is going to bang. And that's what this is. I'm very, very pleased to see that Leon Cage once again is on a RevPro card.
Yeah.
I think, with the exception of Uprising, I think he's been on every card since he debuted. I might be wrong, but he's certainly been on more than he hasn't been on, which is very promising because I feel like of the crop of talent that debuted at the end of 2024, he's the one that excites the most people. And, you know, with some of the regular RevPro guys, like in a position where we might see them taking more and more bookings outside of the UK, you need those exciting new people ready to come in and kind of fill that spot. And I think Leon Cage is exactly that. I'm really interested to see how it goes because Leon Slater, I would expect in storyline to be the favourite to win. If Leon Cage wins, I would personally call it an upset.
Yeah.
I think in RevPro canon, that's an upset. If Leon wins, for me, it could be... Sorry, if Leon Cage wins, it could be like Zazaya beating Michael Oku in the sense that you could really skyrocket him.
Mm-hmm.
You think when Josiah beat Oku, he then didn't lose for a sort of good couple of months, then went 50-50 for a few shows and bounced back with a victory over Luke Jacobs.
Yeah.
Just to be reminded this guy's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a path like that. I think, for my prediction, I think Leon Slater will win. I don't think that Leon Cage is going to have that kind of trigger pulled just yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that coming out of Uprising, Leon Slater will be given the victory. But I think this is going to be 4th match on the card, just before the interval, absolute banger.
Yeah.
Or potentially they just open with it.
Yeah, it's one of 2 matches. There's 2 matches that I think could open, and I think I would probably say there's because if we get the match, I'm trying to think logically what the main event will be, and will the main event, because certainly by the pictures and what I've seen so far, is that going to be Zoe Lucas versus Safire Reed, and if that's the main event, which is what I think it will be, then I've got 3 matches to fit in those opener / 4th before the interval, and this is definitely one of those ones that could fit there. I find this a really interesting one. So we spoke about how popular Leon Slater was, and was he the winner of our best cruiserweight of the? He was our cruiserweight wrestler of the year, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure. Or he was at least.
I think Robbie wasn't he?
No. Robbie didn't win. Famously, Robbie didn't win because he, when he came second, his response was bullshit. So
you're right. I voted Robbie, but I didn't win that one.
But we spoke about the fact that we didn't think that while Leon Slater started the year as cruiserweight, that cruiserweight was not both in. The cruiserweight belt for me in RevPro feels like the men's mid-card title to a degree. Like it's like mid-card / floats, depending on who's holding it. And it feels like that step up for some people. Like we're seeing Luke Jacobs take that step to heavyweight. We're seeing that with Michael Oku. And we're seeing that, I think, both in-ring stature and physical stature with Leon Slater. Like I was at the GCW show yesterday, and the lad seems to have bulked up even more. Like he's physically a menacing presence. And I think sometimes you can be guilty of thinking, well, he's a cruiserweight because of his style, right? Because very fast paced and all the stuff that he does, but he's so much more than that. And I think this match has real implications for 2 different titles, depending on who comes out with the win, which is what I find really interesting, that rather than this being like 2 guys in the same division, different styles, it's 2 guys with similar styles in different divisions. So the implications this can have, if Leon Cage wins, like you said, it starts skyrocketing him. But we've got other people who we're going to talk about on the card as well, who could, like, the cruiserweight division for me in RevPro actually low-key is like one that really intrigues me this year, because there's a lot of pieces currently moving there. And that's before we even think of Lio Rush, who still has a shot at the title. Still technically number 1 contender as it stands.
It's almost like he's kind of like, to use a WWE comparison, like the Mr. Money in the Bank, right?
Yeah.
He's got his shot whenever he calls that shot.
Yeah.
He's not doing a Money in the Bank cash in run in, but if he calls his shot for high stakes, he gets his match at high stakes.
Yeah.
If he calls it for Southampton in 2 weeks, he gets it in Southampton in 2 weeks. Which means that Will Kaven can continue to defend the cruiserweight belt. He could potentially even lose that cruiserweight belt, and Lio Rush is there ready for his shot whenever he wants it.
Yeah, and you've got, at least looking at this card again, we're gonna go into it a bit more, like when we actually get to the matches. But you've got 1, 2, 4 guys on this card coming out of it who could all have a very different view of how they're going to go for that title and the claim they could lay to it or may not be able to lay to it. So I find that really fascinating. Like you, I see Slater picking up the win. I think this year we're going to get a more determined Leon Slater. I think we get Leon Slater that we've said before. He comes out, he gets the crowd going, he really feeds off that energy. But I think his patience for the whole crowd bantering, I think is going to wear a little bit down, and we're going to see a bit more of that. We said the dark side sometimes with a bit more of a serious nature to him. We saw those frustrations coming out at Uprising. I think we get more of that this year with Leon Slater. I could see this one opening the show, and like you said, I could see it in that nice little fourth spot.
Two great spots, aren't they? I think it'll be very interesting. I think we got a lot more Leon Slater last year, especially in the second half of the year, than we probably thought we were going to.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's already booked on this London show and next week's Southampton show, I feel like if he's going to be around a lot, then he's got to be pushed to the top of that kind of upper echelon. I always talk about you got your top four guys in the heavyweight division of RKJ, Connor Mills, Michael Oku, and Luke Jacobs. I think Leon should be a part of that if he's going to be in the heavyweight division. And I feel like he kind of has to be in the heavyweight division given how bulky he's got.
Yeah.
He reminds me so much of Ospreay. It is quite remarkable. Not just like he's physically starting to resemble him in how both men have grown their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
But stylistically, you can see there's so much inspiration there.
Yeah, incredible. So going from that, and obviously we talk about the heavyweight division, a real clash I think that we're going to get on Sunday is Iker Navarro versus a returning one called Manders.
I'm really excited for this.
Yeah.
I want it to be like a coming out party for Iker Navarro. I feel like Barcelona Blacklist kind of captured everybody's imaginations pretty much straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Zaya obviously had this phenomenal run. I think with Golden Boy Santos and Iker Navarro, who were the other two that were part of that Barcelona show, they didn't get the love immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then Santos being with David Francisco, and we get to see more of his personality, and he's really gotten over with fans. And Navarro is kind of in that position now where he's wrestled a few times. They've been quite spread out. They've been in different towns. Each match, I feel, has got stronger. I'm ready now for like the match where you're like, yes, completely get it now. This lad's really good. Because I know it's in there. I just feel like he needs that match where everyone's talking about him. And I think with Manders, he can absolutely have that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is going to be a proper, strong style hoss fight.
Mm-hmm.
But Manders can give quite a lot to Navarro, and Navarro can give quite a lot to Manders. I think we'll see a bit more of a complete performance from him than we've seen before, where he kind of dominated Michael Oku. He kind of went 50-50 with Robbie X. I feel like this one's going to be an opportunity for him to kind of show all the different sides of his game. And it's like, it's a meat fest on the first show after 6 weeks without any shows.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else on this card that looks like it's going to slap as hard as this.
No,
so,
not at all.
Like, my advice would just be, like, because Manders loves it. We know he loves it. He's talked to us about it. Like, Navarro needs to go in there and just hit it in as hard as he can. And those two lads I think they'll put on a great kind of spectacle.
Yeah, I do too. And what I'm hoping so, because Iker Navarro, like you just said, like about the coming out party, Iker Navarro is someone that I've only seen on stream, and he's not really connected with me, and I don't get it. But that's not me ever saying like a wrestler is bad, because that's not why I talk about people. It's just sometimes I don't get it. Famously, I didn't get it about Shinsuke Nakamura for years. But sometimes you need that match, that moment that makes you go, I get it now. And given, like, again, the size of the lads involved, the styles of the lads involved, how up for it and how game Manders would be, like, you've got to think that this is the one where, like you said, like, just go, fuck it, balls to the wall, like, let's just go for it. And like I said, this is a really interesting card because there's so many good matches and so many good pair-ups, but I think really your only other one is with Young Guns a little bit later, but there is a bit more of a tendency for like the technical striker flyer kind of matches, whereas this one stands out on itself. So I mean, I would say, you know what, give us like one of the, I don't want to reduce it, but the flippy matches, right? Give us the acrobatic, all of that sort of stuff. Give us that first and follow up immediately into this. Like a complete contrast in styles.
I hadn't really thought about the order of the card. Like, full disclosure, the graphic that everyone's looking at in terms of the 7 cards on the page is one that I made. So I put Zoe Lucas and Safire Reed at the top of it. I'm informed that will be that's likely to be the headline match. And it feels like it absolutely should be, shouldn't it? Because
it does. Yeah,
you know, Zoe Lucas's return. I hadn't really thought about the other 6 matches in terms of where they would fall on the card. I am now thinking I really would love them to start with Leon Cage versus Leon Slater, and it just be this really aggressive, like, you've had 6 weeks without pro wrestling at its best. Here is pro wrestling at its best. Enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I really like that. And I really like the idea of Navarro and Manders getting the 4th slot.
Yeah.
The proper slobber knocker, slugfest before you get your beer and the merch table for a little come down afterwards. I think that would be brilliant. And then a couple of the matches in between could be a couple of those matches where there is more story involved or more implication from them. I feel like that would also be that would be the best opportunity for this match to reach the level that it can for them to get that slot, because of the fact that it normally goes a little bit longer and they can go to those heights knowing everybody gets to come down afterwards.
Yeah. I would agree on that. I'm really excited for it. I mean, I was lucky enough to be there at GCW yesterday, Luke and Manders again. And it was just as great as it was the first time. Like, just these great fighting spirit counters, like kickouts at 1, all of that. And if that's the spirit they can invoke in Navarro versus Manders, then that will go a really long way as well for getting to showcase Navarro and people actually being able to go, I connect with this now. I'm really excited for Manders in RevPro because the dude did, like, when I say one shot, I mean like the J Cup. It was J Cup, wasn't it? J Cup and Sheffield. So that was his, like, you kind of went and that was it. And you'd think the way people talk about him that he's been around much more than that, but he hasn't. Like, even in the UK, I think his first time back in the UK after that was yesterday. Yeah, so, and that was like September he was here. So you've got a good space of time there, about 4 months there. And now he's coming over. And yesterday, the things I'm hearing, everyone who's never met him before, have you met Manders? He's so cool. He's so lovely. So nice to people. People uploading pictures. And I think for a guy whose style is so aggressive and could be really easy to play as a bully heel, he's actually so likable, like naturally just so likable, that if you have heel RKJ as a champion, for instance, you could play really nicely there. If you have babyface Michael Oku, you don't have to turn Manders. You can just, as we say, lean into those shades of grey, turn it up a little bit, get the aggression out, the Leon Slater. Like, going into next week, that's the match I'm really looking forward to, him and Leon Slater, because I think both of them have got it in them to turn up that aggression. I think this could be, again, another really good match, but I firmly see this one as a Manders win. I'm not sure yet what Manders' spell looks like. It looks like we've got him until, well, it's a good few weeks, I think, up till end of. Am I looking at end of April, or maybe I'm overshooting it? But around that sort of time, I think.
I know he's here long enough. I know he's here long enough for when I am expecting high stakes to be.
Yes, maybe that's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
there's a little gap in the weekends. I think there's only one gap. So, and you're looking at that being like, well, that must be when high stakes is being penciled in for. I think it's just a case of confirming venue.
Yeah.
So that definitely takes us up to late March.
Yeah.
I have not seen an American independent wrestler, male or female, or tag team, come into RevPro and get over as quickly as he did.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
Just, there's something very British about him, whilst being one of the most American people I've ever met. Yeah. You know, like a proper kind of, you know, a proper cowboy. But at the same time, he just gets what we get as Brits and what we like in British wrestling, the style of wrestling we like, just the banter. Like, he's got proper crack and proper banter. Like, I'm delighted that Andy saw what we saw, and has got him back for as many dates as we do. I do think it's Amanda's victory, this one. I'd be very surprised if it's not. Feels like the logical thing to do, given that he's here for a period of time, and I don't know if Navarro is, but that just means it's a case then of, can Navarro really get over in defeat?
Yeah, love that. Speaking about RevPro returns, one that I'm really excited for, because I think I don't know, he might have only just done one show last time. Stephen Wolf versus Will Kaven.
Yeah, he did a Sheffield and a 229.
He did do a 229. Okay, I couldn't remember the 229, but I definitely remember the Sheffield. I'm watching the Sheffield show going, I'm really jealous of the people in Sheffield. Stephen is someone that I couldn't claim to have even heard of before he was announced. So you get these level of independent wrestlers where I've heard their name, know a bit about them, and you get another level where it's just like, don't even know who they are, but excited to hear about them. And I think the first time I heard anything was Amira going, watch out, this guy is the real deal. I was like, okay, like, starting to see, and then a few others start doing the same hype sort of thing. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And absolutely blew it away in that match. And I was like, I like this guy. And I've wanted him back ever since, because I wanted the chance to go and see him live myself. And I know, like, I've kind of kept tabs on him on social media a little bit and watched some of the stuff he's been doing out in America with Hyan, which has been really interesting. I don't know if you've seen much of that, but effectively feuding over who was the champion in the Texas promotion.
And he moved into the spare room throughout their rivalry, because so he could focus on getting the victory rather than putting their marriage on hold for the time that they were competing against each other.
I loved it.
Like you, I didn't know a huge amount about him before he debuted, and have just really enjoyed following him through social media since.
Yeah, and I find it really, because obviously we got that video for Manders. We're like, oh, Manders. Well, actually, I don't know what way around it was. I thought it was Manders first, then Stephen Wolf's video. But either way, when we saw the video for Stephen,
I think it was the other way around.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I think it was Wolf first, then Manders.
You might be right, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like when he said he's not coming back just for a show, like you could see that like time has been put into this. I was like, yes, this is what we want, because, like I said earlier, the Cruiserweight division really feels like this year that is the one that is, I mean, not that they're not all getting focused, but it's starting off strong with so many different possibilities, right? And like we said, we've got Leon versus Leon, which has some implications for this. This one has real implications for the title, because it is literally Stephen Wolf versus the champion, Will Kaven. And this is, I'm just gonna start bold. I think Stephen Wolf wins. I think he beats Will Kaven. I think he pins Will Kaven. And that would be a delightful way to start this.
I think for me, I said it in one of the pieces that I wrote over the weekend. I think something that would be a really good piece of booking in terms of it ticking lots of boxes would be either, in fact, what I would really like is for Will Kaven to win, but Will Kaven to win by some incessant cheating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he attempts to cheat and it doesn't pay off. He attempts to cheat again and it doesn't pay off. He attempts to cheat again and it doesn't pay off. And then he finally cheats and wins.
Mm-hmm.
And for Andy to actually like have a moment with him and it be a punishment for Kaven that he then has to defend the belt in a rematch with Stephen Wolf in Sheffield.
Mm.
So we already know our Southampton main event.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know the
Yeah, we do.
Southampton crowd are delighted. They've got another week and a half until their show, but they've already got 3 matches announced for it. So now's the time coming out of the 229 to start getting stuff for Sheffield.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you maybe you don't want to book anything for Sheffield today because maybe everything's going to it's going to involve people that are wrestling this weekend or people that are already announced for Southampton. If there is a match that's not involving any of those people, for example, if there was a match to feature JJ Gow, he's not been announced for either show yet. Great, get that match graphic up. Just to give people like, we haven't forgotten about you. We're coming to Sheffield. Let's get something shared on social media where we can stick the, tickets available here, plug the season tickets, do all of that side of it. But for them to be able to book a championship match for Sheffield, it'd be a championship match where there's real jeopardy as to who wins it.
Yeah.
And a match which could be, a real legitimate, credible main event. Any championship should be a main event.
Yeah.
I think the number of times I watched Robbie X or Michael Oku defend the Cruiserweight title in the main event slot of, shows up and down the country. So I feel like that would be a really neat way of doing it. Obviously, the other way is you have Stephen Wolf pin Will Kaven clean to earn his title shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do see this being the first of 2 matches. However, they get there. If you're going to go Stephen Wolf winning, just for devil's advocate, then I'll go for Will Kaven winning, but it being with that kind of shenanigans that leads to a rematch.
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely think this is an opportunity to do more. And one of the things that we spoke about as well as with Will Kaven is we've really seen the progression of him over the last year. And when I say progression, I mean the progression in stature. So where he was on the card to where he is now. And I think having these story rivalries to then against these names to help bring him up in line as well, further continue that so that when he does lose the belt, you've got that big payoff there. It doesn't just feel like, oh, well, of course he's going to lose. Like you condition so much to when the title is on the line that he finds that way of doing it. Again, really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Sometimes a wrestler looks like they're just missing one. They're just missing one piece of the puzzle, and then that piece of the puzzle coincides with them getting new ring gear.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when Connor Mills first came out wearing the brown fur jacket?
Yeah.
And suddenly you're just like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now he's perfect. I feel like when Kaven got the jacket, he's 6 inches taller.
Yeah.
He's 6 inches broader. Everything he does looks like it's done with more conviction and confidence than before.
Yeah.
And it's got to be coincidence, but it's just so poetically timed.
Yeah.
And I think that, I look at the graphic they've got for the Portsmouth Contenders shows, and he's there front and center with the belt.
Mm-hmm.
He just looks like a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think back to over the Christmas period, one of the Instagram pinned posts was simply 4 photos of the British champions. So you had Michael Oku holding his belt. That photo of Michael Oku holding the belt, like looking at it like it's relief. At the time, you had Mina Shirakawa and her holding her belt. You had Jay Joshua and Connor Mills with their first photo, kind of like there, like really kind of like look at us, the Dons. And then I had this beautiful Beyond Gorilla photo of Will Kaven holding the belt across him like a proper classic wrestler with championship belt pose, looking down at it. And he looked like he belonged with all those wrestlers.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a huge statement from Will Kaven of like 12 months ago to where he is now. And it's interesting. I think that if Will Kaven's Cruiserweight Championship run was to end in the next couple of weeks, it would still go down as a massive success for the company, his run.
Yeah.
I think it has been a greater success than the Jordan Breaks, Leon Slater, or Neon run.
100%.
And I think you would be saying that he's had the best run since, I think personally, since Robbie X. Because I think that the Connor Mills run didn't reach its full potential. I feel like it was cut short a little bit too soon for me. I feel like the Kaven one has just given the Cruiserweight title everything that it needed. I still think he could run with it for a lot longer. But I also feel like Kaven would be a great person to have multiple title reigns.
Yeah.
I don't think Kaven needs to go up to he doesn't need to like put on size and go up to the heavyweight picture. The Cruiserweight title for Kaven could be like the Intercontinental Championship for Shinsuke Nakamura, the New Japan Intercontinental Championship, like the prize for that wrestler.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I mean, I can't say I know too much about Mills's Cruiserweight reign because that's kind of when I started getting a bit patchy and kind of my watching and knowing a lot about it. But certainly since Leon won the title onwards, I would 100% agree with you that this is the time that it felt like the title was on those men. This feels like he's the champion.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like to me. I felt like we could be talking different if the Jordan Breaks reign went differently. That just felt an odd one for me. I think I kind of see it as I don't know. It felt like maybe they were trying to do something shock the system a little bit. Oh my God, look at this win. And then the opportunity to put on a CMLL wrestler came up and it was like, good business decision and get some matches out of it. So maybe that's what came down there, but it just felt a bit odd. And it felt like it had real potential because I felt like Jordan Breaks brought something very different. And I feel in a very different way that's something Will Kaven also does as well. Not so much in ring, because I think there's stuff that he does in ring that a lot of people can do. But I think it's the real shithouse side of it. That's what it brings us different. It's not the cool heel heat. It's the fuck off heat, right? And not the fuck off in the like I just don't want to see you, but just how
it's not go away heat, is it?
That's it. Yeah, it's just like
I don't like you heat. Secretly, I love you, but I don't like you whilst you're in the ring being who you are.
Exactly, and he's one of the few that you like because you see guys trying to switch it on at times, and the crowd just reject it, right? Because they want to cheer for who they like. I think alongside True and Lacey, he's one of the only acts I think consistently gets that. And I think that's why the three of them ended up getting paired up with each other because they're just heat magnets. They know how to get under people's skins. Going to be a really, really interesting match. I again, talking about returns, and for some, they might not realize this is a return. I thought it was a debut, but no, it's a return. LA Taylor versus Kanji. So that I found the timing of that one really fun, considering our predictions and me predicting LA Taylor and Sky Smithson reforming the Legion.
Yeah.
Come on, Gideon Gray, you need to do us a solid now and get me on that leaderboard. But I thought it was a really interesting one, because now that the women's division is expanding, you've got someone who hasn't been in RevPro for 2 years, I believe, and she's obviously very prominent around the UK, but feels, for a lot of people, will feel very fresh because a lot of people haven't seen her or may have seen her in a tag team with Sky. But this is a chance for her to stand out on her own in a different type of wrestling company against the most informed women's wrestler of the last year.
Yeah. It's like I thought it was a debut as well, because there was nothing on Cage Match in LA Taylor's history of her appearing in RevPro. There is now. I fixed that. It took some bloody digging, I'll tell you that, because it's the 2 shows. There's 3 shows that she appeared on, none of which were on Cage Match, none of which were on RevPro on demand, and even people within RevPro couldn't recall what the cards were, let alone who won them and things like that. So I had to go to some friends of RevPro in Ewan McKenzie.
So Ewan was telling me yesterday about when he said Dave, I didn't picture that it was you, but he was telling me about, and I've just Googled it now, Huntington shows, and he said to me, he was like, I remembered these cards. I was telling Dave, but I never knew that's what it was regarding.
Yes, like literally, so I chatted to some people in RevPro, like saying, I don't suppose you remember that, maybe you've got it written down or anything like that, and they went away and looked and came back being like, you know what, haven't even got it in like my emails to Andy or notes or anything like that. And then I spoke to Ewan, and then Ewan spoke to Dave from the MXL Swapcast podcast, who's got this ridiculous memory. And he came back with like, yep, these were all the matches, this is the running order, and these were the results. And I was like, oh, you beauty. Because for me, I kind of see it as like a personal little thing of making sure that RevPro is represented accurately on Cage Match.
Yeah.
So whenever any of the, when Michael Oku wrestled in Costa Rica and defended the title out there, I got all the details of it and sent it off to them to make sure it was on there, because I want the records to be complete. And I'm someone that uses Cage Match all of the time. I think it's an incredible asset to wrestling fans. So any contribution to make it as complete as possible. So yeah, like you, I thought LA Taylor was debuting. It's going to be really interesting, I think, to see her for the first time, because, personally, because she's so different in terms of physical stature to any of the other women in RevPro. So I'm really excited to see how she presents that and how she wrestles with that, how she combines that kind of size and power as a female talent. I've not seen live any wrestler, I don't think, as tall as she is, and therefore with the strength that I imagine she has to back it up. Booking her against Kanji is brilliant, because if anybody can win a professional wrestling match against someone twice the size of her, it's Kanji, because she is the submission specialist. She is Kanji Saber Jr. And for me, I feel like Kanji is ready for the Mercedes Moné match as soon as Mercedes Moné is available. Listening to some bits that Mercedes has put online and from things that Andy's put out, it very much feels as though it's just, she's an incredibly in-demand woman. So making sure that schedules align, and as soon as they do align, she'll be here. And I think they'll keep Kanji hot until then. I don't think Kanji loses until she wrestles Mercedes Moné.
Interesting. See, I was kind of thinking, I was like, right, so I agree with you. Mercedes Moné feels like the match. But I was having a think, and this is a really weird way of looking at it, considering Mercedes just won the title. But I'm trying to think, when do I think Mercedes is going to lose the title? And who do I think she's going to try to lose to? And almost in a way, work backwards from there. Because we know that Mercedes, she's not going to hold the title for a long time, right? And when I say a long time, you might be looking at like anywhere between 6 to 8 months, right? Which is still a relatively long time, but at the same time, like that's not.
Might only wrestle twice in that time, right?
Yeah, it's like it's not week to week. So I kind of think, what are the matches I want to get there? Well, do I think Kanji's going to be the one to take the title from her? No, I don't. But it's one of the top matches that I think we need to do, right?
Who do you think does?
Well, my thoughts have been, and this all depends on something. So one of my my thought first of all is Alex Windsor takes the title, right? I think Alex Windsor versus Mercedes Moné is just up there as a match, right? That is a top level women's match anywhere in the world.
I think that's the biggest match that RevPro could pull.
Yeah, and part of me though also I've always said that I think this year Alex Windsor features more in America and in AEW. So it all depends if that does happen. What does that mean? Does that mean that, well, Alex, Will, and family then move out to America? We know we've seen these things with Will saying that that's not something he necessarily wants to do, but people change. People's priorities in life change. What they're looking for. He's been out in AEW for a year now. Does that change with the family? Is that feasible for all of that real life stuff? I guess what I'm trying to say that makes me go, I don't care about that in the nicest way possible. Like their family life is their family life, but it would be interesting to see if that does change, like how that impacts, like the possibility of what could happen here. So I think that's where I say, I think that's who takes it. If that does line up in the way that I say that might mean that Alex isn't around to take the title, then my next bet would be Kanji to take the title. But I guess that's a long way.
I completely agree with you, mate.
Yeah, but I think that's a long way as well. Where I'm saying that I want Kanji. You have to do the Alex match and you have to do the Kanji match. If you can only get 2 matches, because realistically, my third match that you have to do, but I just don't know based on company politics, is Danny Luna. Right, I just don't know if that's feasible or not. There's a lot of politics in wrestling at times, especially with WWE, and
that's got even more political, isn't it, with the TNA WWE relationship?
Exactly, and so that's why I'm wondering. Like, we probably don't see that, which would be a crying shame. Although maybe now we see Danny Luna versus Steph Ficare on WWE television. But
I mean, this is it, right? Like, for every dream match that politics gets in the way of, it opens up for a different dream match.
Yeah, so part of me goes, well, what do I think then happens? When do I think the Kanji match happens? And like you just said there, you don't expect her to lose. I don't know. I mean, I think Kanji has, I think she, again, has the most momentum. She will have the most momentum going in. We'll certainly find out by the time a match gets announced, because we'll have the power rankings in play. But, like, nice little plug there. But I could see, and I'm maybe hopeful here, that Kanji gets the win here. Like you said, I think LA Taylor, so big domineering presence, agile, so strength, power, isn't just plodding along, very magnetic personality. She's great. Like, I really love her, and I've only seen her though realistically either in shows where it's multi-person bouts, where I don't think you get to see people's best, or very raw talent is the polite way of putting it. So I'm really interested to see her up against someone like a Kanji. The thing about LA over the last couple of years is she is really well tied to Sky Smithson as well. So do we see this being a way of Sky coming into RevPro? I'm hoping so, because that's a return we need. Which then means, do they try and play spoiler to Kanji over the course of a few weeks, like a little mini rivalry?
Yeah,
to give
exactly
Kanji
what I'm
something.
hoping for.
Yeah, and maybe that's so I see Kanji winning here. I don't know if I necessarily see her winning all the way to the Mercedes match, but I see something building up here to give her that meaty story. So it's not just and she wins another match and she wins another match. Not that that's a bad thing, but to just give us that bit more to chew on. That's where I think we get to here, and I'm really looking forward to it. There's
I
so
very
many.
much hope that's exactly what happens, mate.
Yeah, nice. So we're down to like the last 3 matches on the card, mate. So I was saying earlier about matches that could open the show, matches that could go on fourth, and then you kind of go like you've got your 3 premier spots. You got obviously main event, fourth, and first. But then you could also argue fifth after the interval, getting people back in, right? And this is one that I could see either opening, or I could see it open in the second half. I think it opens one of the halves. And that is Kuro versus Robbie X.
Yeah.
I've heard so much about this man. So much. Yep. It is unreal how much I've heard about this man. Probably from people that follow European wrestling, his name was probably at the top of every list of people across Spain, France, Germany. When we're talking about European wrestlers, who is at the top, he is the man that I've heard so much about. So to see his name pop up, I was like, oh, this means business. And then against Robbie X as well.
Yeah.
Like again, this is what I meant by you got Leon versus Leon. This match could be just as good. This match could be better. Like, and I get crazy proposition, but I mean, he's called Mr. Hype for a reason, right?
It's even more interesting because it's this version of Robbie X.
Yes, agreed so much.
If it was King of the Cruiserweights, Robbie X, it would be a guaranteed banger.
Mm-hmm.
It being Extreme Robbie X means that not only is it going to be a banger, but it could take on multiple different paths.
Yeah.
Because of the shithouse element, because of his kind of happiness to lean into the dark side a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really torn. I would not be shocked at either outcome in terms of victor. I think it's going to come down to Robbie X winning because of cheating.
Mm-hmm.
But the 12 to 15 minutes before that are going to be splendid.
They are, mate. They are. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm going to say Kuro wins purely because you've got Robbie X there, and it's just a nice little spoiler there. But I think, mate, the real winner is everyone watching, because I just
100%.
He just has this about him from clips I've seen. I'm trying not to watch too much because again, you see people's thoughts and hey, this is what the guy is all about, and sometimes that can really lead you to like hype them up too much. But the guy, first of all, is Mr. Hype, and like, I mean, I reached out to him. I know you did as well, but I reached out to him to be like, hey, we run a podcast. Do you want to come on and speak to us? And I said to him, I was like, I'm looking forward to getting hyped. And he basically came back to me and was like, hey, this is a bit about me. And I'm not going to go into too much because I know that you've obviously done a piece as well, which go over to Dave and read that as well. But I loved how he was like tell about his inspirations. And I think this is what makes me like really hyped to see him trained by Igor Blanc, and from what I understand, a very fast-paced style. But his four inspirations: Hangman Page, Marufuji, and then his 2 favorite wrestlers of all time, Okada and The Rock. Like, what a list
That's so diverse, right?
So diverse.
And he said to me that his biggest inspirations of all, Kendrick Lamar and Kanye West.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, okay. Like he sees the whole picture so differently to because I've had multiple conversations with wrestlers like that, because I've done lots of introducing pieces for the website and for the Peek Behind the Curtain series, the little 5 minutes with Dave the Mark that I've started this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the privilege of chatting to wrestlers a lot about inspirations and little short answer questions and longer form interviews.
Yeah.
And I always find it so interesting when people come back with something and you're like, oh, that's so unexpected. But it's also like, then, wow, I'm really interested. I'm even more interested to see how that manifests itself in his everything, his entrance, his gear, his performance, his energy. Like, I'm really excited for it. And I love how the last 6 months or so, especially, feels like RevPro is really leaning on the fact that there are European talents.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like the European import is a great model for the future. Much, much less cost-worthy than bringing somebody over from the States or Japan, but far cheaper for paying for European flights and things like that. More importantly, or equally, more importantly to the fan, that's obviously really important to Andy paying bills, but to us as the fans, much easier to do on a more regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not getting Royce Isaacs coming over for one appearance and then not to be seen again. You can have your Golden Boy Santos, you can have your Zazaya, you can have someone coming back and forth regularly or semi-regularly, or even if it's like Mike DeVecchio, came over like 5 times last year, semi-regularly, I'd call that. So really, really excited for that, and it's got this real freshness because the scene, it's like that the rising tide lifting all ships. The more the European scene grows, the better it is for the British wrestlers, and the more the British scene grows, the better it is for all the European wrestlers. Like, it's really, really promising to see.
Yeah, I love that. And like you said, like it feels like a market that's like really starting to emerge. BZW, Banger Zone Wrestling, like that has been what I'd always heard of. I'd always heard of the stuff out in Germany. So especially WXW, that was like the one that was like when NXT Black and Gold was becoming the kind of like the wrestling snobs, like everyone was starting to like it, and they felt like they needed to pivot to do something else. It's like, well, WXW is what we watch. That is the real in demand one, and then Banger Zone Wrestling has just come out of nowhere, and obviously Kuro is very heavily linked there, and I was looking like they're getting all these names. They had Penta appearing at an event for them. They had, of all people, Jake Hager versus Connor Mills. We've obviously seen a lot of the British talent do really well out there, which is great, again, because like you said, it's spreading that over. But one of their strengths that I've seen, their on-demand service, €20 for the year.
Really?
So, yeah. So, and I saw this, and they don't actually give you the option to translate the website. And I was like, I can't be reading this correctly. Yes, it's like, I think it's like €5 a month if you subscribe each month. But if you subscribe for the year, €20. And I've checked with a friend who speaks French and follows the promotion and said, have I read this correctly? And they're like, yeah, you've read it. And in actual fact, it's gone up €5 since last year. It was €15 last year.
Yeah, wow.
But that's a really good way of then going, hey, you're curious about this. Well, we've got this name like Penta. Sign up and get this and watch, and then get to know all this talent. And like I said, then that gives mainland Europe more options as well, because look, since Brexit, like it's not going to be as easy for people to travel back and forth, right, with different visas. And I know that comes into play more so middle of this year. I think it's from about June. We're gonna have to get like the equivalent of an ESTA to travel back and forth that you have for America, where you have to sign up, get this temporary sort of visa back and forth, and it won't be an issue, I imagine, but it's not as easy it would have been when you could just drive over the border, show your passport.
Pre-Brexit, like
Yeah,
none of these issues.
yeah, exactly, and but that's obviously something they're not going to have themselves because they can still drive around these countries and whatnot. So it gives them another option to get over, people to get notice them, and then again make their way over. With us, feels a bit more fresh. I'm really looking forward to it. You know, one of the other things I really liked about the message that he sent as well, and again plays into the character, but you feel this guy, like when I was talking to him, is the character and the man all that different? Because he talks about the character, but people are their influences as well, right? Like you're a product of your influences in your life. Yeah. And one of the things that I really liked that he said, with all of the things that he said to me, was also face Leon Slater from RevPro in one of the best matches in France. I love that confidence. Like,
and I watched that match. It was brilliant.
Yeah, he's really like not afraid to bet on himself, is he? And I think you've got that. And then you've got Robbie X, Robbie X is a man that's definitely not afraid to bet on himself. And this last 6 months for Robbie X, like seeing that, hey, this Japanese dream is going to come true. Like you could see it was coming. And I don't know about you, but even when it looked like it was going to come, I had this little feeling of, like I used to back in the day, for like when one of my guys, like Eddie Guerrero, was going to win the world title. It's not actually going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen. And kind of like you feel like it's been coming for Robbie for so long that it's not going to happen. Well, it fucking did. And now he's on that next level. Mate, so happy.
So happy for him. Like I watch all the New Japan major events. Their appointment booking for me throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't normally watch every match on every card, and I certainly don't normally watch all the Road 2 shows.
Yeah.
But when Robbie was out for the Junior Tag League, I watched every single match he was in, even like the multi-man undercard matches on the nights he wasn't in the Tag League.
Yeah.
Because I just felt this enormous sense of like pride, which I always feel is so weird because, you know, we're adults feeling pride for other adults who, you know, we don't know on a personal level more than, you know, from fan to performer. But when you know how much it means to somebody and what they do in RevPro means so much to you, you want it for them. You're willing it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
I'm delighted for him, and I'm sure he's going to have a massive year this year.
Yeah, so I mean, I get what you say, because like some people go, oh, I can't. Well, how can I be proud of him? Because like not like in any other way, then it's just like it's not my place to have that. But I get what you mean. Like it's a bit of an odd thing because at the end of the day, they're wrestlers, we're fans, but especially when you go and speak to them at the merch table, you can see that they're hustling, right? They're trying to make that money because they want to turn this job into their full-time job, and we know some of these wrestlers aren't able to do that. Some would love to be able to take that chance, but they've got to keep a roof over their head. They've got to keep food on the table. They've got family. They've got kids and all of that. And for some of them...
He's also been doing it for like 15 years.
Yeah.
On like a full-time level.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of like a full-time British schedule of working Monday to Friday and wrestling Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night.
Yeah.
Like and from when he was younger to the schedule he keeps now, where he's in and out of the country wrestling on every opportunity. Like 100% get as much money from it as you can. Charge that extra $5 for a t-shirt. Get your, you know, get every opportunity you can, because a career is very, very short, and a wrestling career is even more complicated, given that it takes such a combination of circumstances to get to a point where you can actually make sustainable money from it.
Yeah, Absolutely. Big year for Robbie X. Now, we're down to the final 2 matches, my friend. Again, another match where we're talking about matches when we saw them go, this could be match of the night. And this is probably the other one that I see. If this doesn't open the show, this might close out the first half for me. Or, again, could open the second half. Barcelona Blacklist versus Young Guns.
I'm going to open this conversation by asking you a question.
Go for it.
Who do you think wins?
I think Young Guns win. I think they have to win.
I think depending on who wins tells us where it goes on the card and how prominent a match it is. Because I feel like there's 2 things here. I mean, it's going to be an absolutely brilliant match, right? It's going to be so much fun to watch. Young Guns are one of the most exciting tag teams to watch. They're so fluid, they're so snug, but they're also just they get you close to the edge of your seat every single time. Ethan Allen is a monster, just ruthless and brutal, and one of my absolute favorite wrestlers in the world to watch. And Luke Jacobs, doesn't matter how many times you watch him, I think I'm pushing 50 Luke Jacobs matches now. He just takes your breath away with one of those lariats or one of those suplexes where it's just like, oh my God, that you've actually seriously caused damage there.
Yeah.
And then Joey Torres and Sito Sanchez are like, they're exciting and they're new and they're fresh and they're different and they've delivered quality matches in every match that they've had. And you know that they're going to come and they are going to show out. They are going to give everything they've got for this performance. But when a champion loses, the next match they have is a bit of a free hit, right? Because if you lose, you've lost your title. So you've lost all your momentum.
Yeah.
If you then lose one more match, it doesn't really do anything. It just delays the start of your return to the top. But what it can do for the opponents is massive, right?
It can. Now, I'll tell you the reason why I think I went with Young Guns here, because I think the match we get at high stakes is Young Guns versus Mills and Jay Joshua. That's the match I think we're getting. And
that's my copper box match.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
That's a match I've got earmarked for the copper box, which obviously is a hell of a long time away in terms of wrestling shows. And that means Jay Joshua and Connor Mills would have to keep those titles for a really long time and would have to keep Young Guns away from the titles. Although in my kind of plan in my head, I can see Young Guns having 2 stabs at the tag titles.
Or could you have the switch happen and then again we talk about the rivalries. The rivalry gets us back there for the copper box. I don't know.
Yeah, potentially. I like the fact that there will be a lot of people that look at this match and are just like, oh, Young Guns will win that. But I like how I genuinely can talk myself into seeing both sides of it.
Yeah.
And I would not be shocked at all if Barcelona Blacklist won this match.
No, I that's the thing. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, in that case, I'm gonna go for it and say I think they will.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going Young Guns.
The opportunity to have a free hit with Luke Jacobs. He's lost 1, let him lose 2 on the bounce. Ethan Allen doesn't get damaged by losing a match. He's quite 50-50 at the moment. You know, every time he wins one, he then loses one. He's finding his rhythm. I think what it will come down to is, are Barcelona Blacklist here for a nice weekend, or are they here for 2025?
Yeah, I'm really hoping they're here for 2025.
that rub of beating, the team or one of the teams if they're not going to capitalise on it.
Yeah, agreed. And I think with a lot of things, I think we come out of this show with a lot more of the roadmap for the year, right? Or at least for the first half of the year, where you go, all right, I kind of start to see that these might be the regular people I'm seeing. Yeah, nice. So Dave takes us on to main event time.
Yes.
Zoe Lucas.
Your first Zoe Lucas match?
My first one. I've seen bits of Zoe Lucas on streams and stuff like that. I've never sat down and watched a full match because at the time Joshi Wrestling was out in Japan. At the time, Joshi Wrestling was not something I watched much of. And at the time, I didn't really watch a lot of independent wrestling. So she's someone that I've known about. I've seen bits about. I've seen probably more character work than anything. And the one thing I have seen is she's got some fucking awesome kick-based strikes. Like I think it was like a scorpion kick and stuff like that, which is really different. I'm really looking forward to seeing her.
I've watched pretty much all of. I imagine I must have watched all of her RevPro matches. So I've completed RevPro on demand, of course. I've never seen any of her external work. I know she did lots of work for Shimmer and lots of work out in Japan. But the RevPro work, it really fascinates me because for large portions of that time, she was the heel. So I'm really curious to see babyface Zoe Lucas. Her versus Safire Reed's perfect because Safire's brilliant, and she's
so good.
She's underrated at the same time as having even more potential to grow better than she currently is. So it's kind of like that. That sounds like a backhanded compliment. But on one hand, I'm saying that people don't realize how good she is. And then on the other hand, she could still get so much better. I feel like she's someone who she could go a really, really long way in the industry. Like not just in British wrestling, but in wrestling overall. And I feel like the Cutthroat Collective she is benefiting probably the most from that, in the sense that she's learning from so many different people, but she also adds so much to it. She is the cocky little gobshite of the Cutthroat Collective, but she's also the vicious one. She's the one that headbutted Sarah Hatch. She's the one that has picked up really significant victories and done so with really strong wrestling acumen. And so she's got both the character side and the in-ring really, really down. I think it's a perfect match for Zoe coming back. I'm really curious to see how it ends. I would expect Zoe Lucas to win because it's her big return. But I also wouldn't be surprised if she didn't, because I don't think that she would be barging into Andy's office saying, "You can't book me to lose on my first match back." I think she'd quite like to. I think she'd quite enjoy losing on her first match back. It seems to be the classic wrestlers thing, isn't it, of wanting to put others over and wanting to book themselves to lose. And with the Cutthroat Collective, you've got so many avenues for them to interfere and because this isn't good. This isn't a one and done, is it? This isn't from Uprising to now. She's been antagonized out of kind of semi-retirement to have one match with Safire Reed and then go back home. She's here for the long haul now. So I'm really curious. I think it's going to lead to that 5-on-5 we've been talking about with Millie McKenzie and Charlie Evans and Kanji and the like. And I'm curious to see how this builds to it. But most importantly, I'm just really excited for my first Zoe Lucas match.
So I've got a number of things I want to say about this. I want a really bold probably not going to happen, but you know what, RevPro, anything can happen kind of pitch. So first of all, much like you, Zoe, the majority I've seen of her was as a heel, which I found really, really interesting because I kind of go, you've got this woman who plays up this really cocky persona really, really well. But she also has this really likable quality about her, like a bit self-deprecating. Every time I've seen her on anything, whether it's like on screen or just on screen kind of like do backstage videos for photography and stuff like that, just got this fun, quirky, self-deprecating, doesn't take herself too seriously kind of vibe. And like you kind of saw a bit of that like if you watch the York Hall videos, and it almost looks like when Safire's coming over, like she's trying not to laugh a little bit, trying to be serious, and like, and you can, is that by design, is that just the moment and whatever, but you can always play it up like a bit character for her. So I think she's just got this genuinely likable factor of her. I think her getting back in the ring is gonna be great. Safire, everything you said there is, yeah, nail on the head. Like, I think back to like what I see as the first big Safire Reed moment. So obviously we had the stuff I saw was in Portsmouth, and then but that was before that. It was the Rumble Battle Royale for 11th anniversary show, and I was like, okay, she seems a bit different. And then I saw the stuff with her with Maya Matthews and Alex Windsor in Portsmouth. I was like, yep, like what I'm seeing here. And then she kind of almost got fast-tracked to the match with Danny Luna at High Stakes last year. And I came out of that game, decent match now. Now, this is going to sound like I'm being like talking down, and I'm not. I think that match now is 10 times better than it was then. But that's because of the freak level that Safire has progressed over the year. Right?
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with like any of the women there. It's just that she was at a level where she was a good up and coming prospect. She still is that, but we're talking about a good up and coming prospect for RevPro versus now a good up and coming prospect in the world of wrestling.
You also think that high stakes match was her first big show.
Yeah. And that's
and
it.
Then
like
you think 6 months later she's in that copper box match.
Exactly. And like, if you told me that
every one of those women leaves that match 3 years more experienced.
Yeah. If you told me that match, high stakes, and that one was 6 months apart, I wouldn't believe you. 2 years apart, definitely. And that is what I'm talking about with the growth with her and how much she's just gone for it. And it's commendable because she wrestles everywhere, and that's why she's doing the work. She's getting the reps in. She's going up against such a variety of different opponents. Without wanting to put too much pressure on it, I think she's one of the first British wrestlers to get the WWE ID tag. I think that's coming. I understand that when they come over this year that they're interested in seeing British wrestlers. I just see her as one. Yeah.
WWE tryouts in March, aren't there?
Is that it? Right. Okay. Yeah. So I see her as being one of the ones. Like, she's got so much upside, but you could put her on NXT TV today alongside that crop of women that they've got there. She would absolutely stand out because
she's quite. Do you see the comparisons between her and Paige?
I do to a degree. Yeah. She fits that kind of.
I think what I probably mean is I can see WWE seeing comparisons between her and Paige.
Yeah, kind of almost like the alternative kind of
like
that vibe. Yeah,
the young, tough, really accomplished for like her age.
Yeah,
outspoken and confident alternative woman to everything else that NXT naturally produces. With the kind of like the Saraya always used to talk about it, didn't she, when she first went to NXT, and it felt like everybody was like blonde haired modeled, and then she was the dark haired Brit, like the alternative. And I feel like Safire's got a bit of that about her, and at least that's how WWE would perceive her.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, and I think she's got unlimited potential wherever she goes in her career in general. This match, I think, is just a really good return because you're putting Zoe up against someone who is just so good in the ring. She's genuinely massively good. So you're not that I think anyone in RevPro does have this, but you don't have to worry about, is she going to mesh with the right person, or is this person going to be like the right person to give her for the first time to make her feel comfortable and all of that. And yeah, I think it's the right decision, and it carries on paying into a storyline that we've seen coming up. Like you've said, I think that's where it leads. It leads into a multi-person match for the Cutthroat Collective. And again, like you said, it's a good way, again, to still further establish the Cutthroat Collective as that big team on that big stage, right? In these matches, but have these women that can go up against and elevate them in the process. Because you can't argue that last time people like Rio, I mean, yeah, she came to RevPro, but people knew her, but coming in, elevated her with that audience. It elevated Debbie Keitel with that audience as well. And I think you could do that with a bunch. Here's my pitch. Something happens which costs Zoe the match, okay? We have the Cutthroat Collective come out, and then you set up a tag match with Safire and one of the Cutthroat Collective, and Zoe's tag partner, Southampton's own Jamie Hayter. Next Sunday, she's already in the country against Alex Windsor on the Friday night. Let's bring her in for the Sunday in Southampton. Have that match. I don't think it's actually going to happen, but it is one of those matches that's crazy enough that it could happen.
I've stopped telling myself that things in RevPro aren't going to happen.
Yeah.
Because every time I think, no, they can't do that. They do it. So why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
They've in the space of 6 months, they had MJF and they've belted up Mercedes. So it could happen. It absolutely could happen. I don't think it will, but it could happen. But jokes aside,
Safire for the win?
I'm going Safire for the win, but I think she wins in dubious circumstances.
Yeah, I very much see that also, but for the sake of devil's advocate, I'm going to go for Zoe. That's not me just choosing the opposite of you for the sake of a bit of friendly banter, but I genuinely can see it either way.
Yeah,
I think that I'd probably say that like 60% of me feels Zoe's going to win because Andy's going to give her that special moment. But then I can also really see the Cutthroat Collective costing her. I think Zoe will get the win and then the Cutthroat Collective will jump her.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either because look what that does for the division. There'll be a lot of people, because of when Zoe Lucas last competed in RevPro, will be aware of the name, be aware of the history, but won't be aware of the wrestler as much. And I suppose that's where I fit into it, right? You have her come in and best one of the Cutthroat Collective. You have her come in and defeat the prodigy of RevPro, the person who got was the clear front run winner of one of our awards for who'd stepped up and impressed and increased the biggest over the last year. Safire Reed, the person who's vicious, who's got all that. You have her beat her in her return match. That instantly goes, up here, you're here.
Yeah.
And that's what a win here does for that as well. So, yeah, like you, I could see anything happening.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I think if it was different kind of companies, different kind of promotions, you go, oh, they want to send everyone home happy. Andy has shown that he is happy sending the crowd home with a cloud of, oh my God, what have I just witnessed? And that could be what we have here. So, yeah. Excited to be back in the 229.
We don't have to wait very long to find out.
We don't, mate. We do not have very long to wait and find out. So, yeah, that was our preview of London. And hopefully, mate, by the time we get to the end of the week, we'll have a whole Southampton card pretty much ready to go next
Nice,
Monday.
mate, wouldn't it?
And then we
come
can
back next week
preview
and do a
that.
bit of both.
Yeah. Oh, Dave, I can't wait, mate. I cannot wait.
No, I will see you Sunday, my friend. I can't
See
wait
you
for it.
Sunday. See you Sunday, my friend. Right. Catch you later.